What exactly is founder?
Okay, founder is what you get the step beyond laminitis. You start with laminitis, which is the inflammation, and the damage process starts. If you do not give your horse food, if you do not change its diet and you get the sugars out of its diet so that the insulin can go down and the destruction, the snowball that keeps happening over and over and over doesn't stop. And then, of course, trimming correctly to encourage the foot to grow down. But that's not going to fix it. Trimming correctly cannot put the foot back together. You just enable it to grow back down connected if you fix what caused it. But founder is the next step in the damage process where you get what's called rotation, which I think is one of your next questions.
What exactly is rotation?
Rotation isn't actually rotation. And I really need a picture to show you why, because it gets confusing at this point. But you have to remember the leg of your horse is connected. And I don't know, the best way you can explain it is your own foot. You have a bone, and I can do this with my foot, but I didn't disconnect anything from, or if we wear high heels, our foot's pointed down, so technically we've rotated our bone, and this is what happens with the foundered horses. It's not rotation. You're looking at an x-ray, and when you do that on a horse that's not been treated at all, the whole foot, when this happens, the whole wall just seems to grow like crazy. So the heel grows like crazy, which ends up pushing everything upward, and then that motion, because your lamina isn't working, it's half dead, so it's not really holding the wall to the foot. As the horse tries to walk, it almost pulls the toe wall away, which is why you get that very distorted look on the foot. But the bone hasn't moved. The wall moved. So like if you put your foot in a high heel shoe, your foot bone moved, but you didn't change anything on the inside of the bone. So the bone is still attached where it's supposed to be attached. All we have to do is take the heel off, take that extra toe crap off, and the bone's going to be parallel again, ground parallel, exactly what it was supposed to be. But the wall won't look pretty. The outside of the foot, because you have to remember, the bone is actually the dynamic part of the foot. It can't go anywhere. The wall, however, is the bone is static. The wall is the dynamic part where it can get distorted and misshapen. And a lot of people in their head want to keep that wall shaped like a foot, and the bone's pointing down, and it's just, they can't comprehend. No, we'll just cut off everything that's extra, put the bone back to ground parallel. The wall will be sticking straight up in the air, but who cares? Because it's not attached anyway at this point.
So the terminology that the coffin bone is rotated is really very misleading.
It is misleading. It's very misleading. And the degree of rotation is still it really should be called degree of separation, though. And separation is a much better term, which is, if your bone is here and your wall is here, you have this separation going on. So if you measure this degree of separation, it's much more accurate. But you could also, degree of rotation, same thing. What you're looking at is how far apart the wall and the bone have gotten.
So, what would be a minor degree of separation, and what would be a disastrous degree of separation?
I've heard people say only 15 degrees, it's not bad. And then, some people say, oh my God, it's 15 degrees, I gotta put the horse down. So, it really doesn't matter. Honestly, it doesn't matter. If it is so bad that we can't get the foot to grow back correctly, and this is where the problems come in, if it happens over and over and over and over and over and over, and you get just this horrible mess, after so much damage, that lamina cannot regenerate. You have 600 tubules per foot. And then we'll get to the point where, it's sort of like your hair, if you pull it out enough times, it'll stop growing. So, the same thing happens with these lamina. If they get that damaged, that long, they just don't regenerate. So then, most feet, they say, can function with about half of them. But when you get less than half, you're going to be in trouble. There's really not enough to hold the foot together. So you may end up with a horse that can amble around a pasture, but it's never going to be a rideable.
So should we ignore the degrees of rotation or not?
I do. Honestly, I don't care, what it is. I kind of can tell if this is something we're going to be able to fix depending how bad it is. Trim it for 6 months, give it or at least 3 months. See if you can get any improvement. Because sometimes you can't. But there's one I've trimmed for about 4 years, and I swear every time I go over there, maybe 5 years now, every time I go over there, she's a little bit better. Her feet will never look perfect, but she's rideable. And she was in a foundered state for 2 or 3 years before I met her. So that was a success story that I honestly didn't think would be, and then there's other ones I think, well, we can fix that, and then we can't. And that just doesn't get any better ever.
So when do you know when to euthanize or not?
You just got to use your best judgment. Is the horse suffering or isn't it? Is the horse improving or isn't it? Can we manage the horse? Can we not?
So are you saying that you prefer Butte over Banamine?
Either one. Doesn't matter.
Okay.
They're about the same.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, what? Which part? The best thing is not to let this happen.
Right.
If you feed your horse correctly, if you've always took care of your horse's feet, this is probably not going to be an issue. I have had one founder, though, that I was trimming, and I warned the girl with a big cresty neck, no warning signs, was fat. I said, she thought I didn't. She just didn't agree, as the case would be, and the horse, about 2 weeks after, I said, I think you really need, she's a horse founder. Should have put it down. Because it ended up with hoof slough. And that's one of those cases where hoof slough is horrifically painful. I mean, the whole hoof wall just falls off like a shoe would come off your foot. She didn't want to put the horse through that, so we got put down. So every case is kind of individual. But.
Also, just to back up a bit, are you saying that you prefer the terminology hoof wall separation to rotation?
Separation is a much more accurate term, yes. Because rotation, like you said, it's misleading.
Yeah, because we have visions of the bone moving around.
Right, and that's what people picture. Really, if you want to call it rotation of the hoof wall upward, that would be accurate. But, people just have it ingrained in their head that rotation means the bones move down. And
right.
The bone can't move. The bone is attached. Feet 1, 2, and 3 are attached. And it's a joint. It's supposed to move. So the fact that it did that is nothing. All we got to do is take the heels off and it goes back here. It's not a big deal. But, yeah, separation, because it's just a different term, it gives you a different way to think about it. So I prefer to say separation, yes.
Okay.
It's a little bit better.
Well, that explains a lot. And what do you think about diet of the horse? You do not like sweet feed.
It should be
you, you don't like sweet feed.
Really, every horse, really, 11% NSC, which is non-structural carbohydrates. And if you have a working horse that can handle maybe 25, I know a lot of horses are on strategy, which is like 26%. And they're fine because they're working, they're being rode, they're using their calories. But if you have a pasture horse that isn't doing anything, you probably don't need to feed it at all. You need to give it hay, honestly. But yeah, any kind of grain product, sweet feed's horrible. You need to you need to call the feed companies because they don't even put this on the labels. It's very tricky, but really horses don't need sugar ever. They just aren't designed to metabolize it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.